This is Inside Indiana Business Radio for the morning of Monday, August 12th, 2024. I'm Alex Brown. Now that the final section of I-69 between Martinsville and Indianapolis is complete, drivers between the capital city and communities like Bloomington, Washington, and Evansville can get to where they're going a little faster. But there is also optimism in cities and towns along the route that it will mean economic development opportunities. Evansville Regional Economic Partnership CEO Lloyd Winnicky.
The opening of the I-69 from Evansville to Indianapolis has created untold economic wins for businesses in the Evansville region. Whether it gives businesses a greater opportunity to transport goods and services, their final product or raw material, it just makes them more efficient.
You can read more on the potential impact in this week's Indianapolis Business Journal. Michigan City home builders may have it easier finding supplies after the reopening of Mid-City Supply's store in the city. The Elkhart-based plumbing and HVAC wholesaler cut the ribbon on a $1.6 million expansion last week, saying it will make it easier for businesses to get parts for their own operations. Indiana's revenue collections outpaced projections in July. The Indiana State Budget Agency said Friday that general fund revenues last month totaled just over $1.5 billion, which was 2.6% higher than the December 2023 forecast and 5.1% higher than the same month last year. From the number one source for Indiana business news, this is Inside Indiana Business Radio.
IBJ Media, Inside Indiana Business, and the Indiana Economic Development Corporation invite you to the Engage Indiana series, presented by CareSource, Indiana University, and Old National Bank. With an unrelenting focus on growing Indiana's economy, we'll dive into each region's unique challenges and distinct opportunities for growth. 9 regions, 1 goal. Indiana's bold future starts here. Discover more and register at ibj.com/engage.
A conservative education foundation filed an amicus brief last week in support of a former Brownsburg teacher who was forced to quit his job at a public school after he chose not to use preferred pronouns when identifying transgender students.
The Terre Haute-based Bopp law firm filed the brief on behalf of the Young Americans Foundation in support of John Klug. Lead counsel James Bopp Jr. said, quote, "The school district's attempt to force Mr. Klug to violate his Christian beliefs is a blatant attack on religious liberty and the First Amendment." In 2017, teachers in the Brownsburg Community School Corporation were instructed to begin using transgender students as preferred names. After Klug communicated with the superintendent that the requirement went against his religious beliefs, the superintendent told Klug he could either use their preferred names, say he was forced to resign from his position, or be terminated without pay. In response, Klug requested an accommodation for his religious beliefs where he could address all students by their last name. The superintendent approved of the accommodation. Later that year, Klug's principal informed him that his accommodation created tension and that he should resign. A couple months later, Human Resources told Klug his accommodation was being withdrawn as students were offended by his use of last names. The lawsuit claims Klug did not tell the students why he was referring to them by their last names. He resigned at the end of the 2018 school year. A lawsuit was filed in the U.S. District Court for Southern Indiana in 2019, alleging the corporation violated Title VII, the U.S. Constitution, and the Indiana Constitution. The case has since moved to the 7th Court of Appeals. I'm Mark Mazurek for Inside Indiana Business Radio.
Forbes is out with its 2024 ranking of America's best employers for women, and 6 Indiana-based companies made the list. The ranking is based primarily on surveys of more than 150,000 women working at companies with at least 1,000 employees in the United States. Survey respondents were asked how likely they were to recommend their current and previous employers, and if they'd recommend any employers they knew through their industry or through family and friends who work there. Columbus-based Cummins is the highest-rated Indiana company at number 19. The others are Vera Bradley in Fort Wayne, Eli Lilly and Company and Elevance Health in Indianapolis, Kimball International in Jasper, and NiSource in Merrillville. Indiana Golf Executive Director Mike David is this week's guest on the Business and Beyond podcast with Gary Dick, presented by PNC, a weekly conversation with high-profile Hoosiers in business, sports, and entertainment, and beyond. Available now from your favorite podcast provider. I'm Alex Brown for Inside Indiana Business Radio on Demand.